Hey guys, today I'm going to be walking you through one of my most recent live stream paintings that I did. It's going to be my demon girl character again in a confident pose, listening to music. The whole point of walking you through my painting process today is to show you how chaotic it can be sometimes. You'll see here, I rechanged her pose probably a million times. I had no idea what I was doing. And to be honest, most of the time that I start live streams, I kind of get a sense of panic and I freeze a little bit in my mind, and I usually have no idea what I'm going to draw, or if I did have an idea of what I was going to draw like I did in this painting, I kind of almost temporarily lose the ability to draw or even think about how to start. So sometimes it's a little bit rough and anxiety inducing, but I finally started to get things going and kind of let myself loosen up, and sometimes it's hard for me to get into the right mindset to draw, especially when I'm doing it in front of other people. So it was a little bit rocky at first. You can see I started off with her in a kneeling pose, listening to her music, and I was going to have her wearing a very baggy sweater that kind of went over the top part of her thighs, and then maybe shorts underneath that or something, but I abandoned that idea and I gave her a sort of sweater crop top and sort of sweatpant leggings for her bottoms. And I settled on that outfit, but I still was trying to go with a kneeling position. But you'll see shortly here, I eventually abandoned that for a pretty sweet perspective pose from above. So I really ended up liking how it came out in the end, despite all the challenges initially. But especially with her legs here and the perspective I was trying to do with her knees facing the viewer's point of view was a little bit wonky. So here's where I abandoned all that and used the distort transform tool to kind of shrink down the lower part of her body to make it seem like it was further away in a more of a drastic perspective style. But here I start blocking in on a separate layer underneath that sketch some lighter gray, and then a darker gray to shade in some basic shading before I actually get started painting. You'll see how rough this is here, and I'm gonna start cleaning it up. A lot of the times when I'm stressing and can't really figure out what I'm doing in a drawing, my sketch will come out really rough, and I'll notice if I'm more in the zone and more in a flow mode that my sketch usually looks a little bit more clean. That's just kind of how it is. But I don't let a rough sketch stop me. I just go in and go ham on it. And I keep painting over and repainting over areas wherever I need to. But I wanted to give her kind of a surprised but joyous look on her face. This was maybe supposed to be a time that she's listening to a new song that she's never heard, or maybe the first time she's ever listening to music. I have a whole backstory on her that I created when I was, I think, in high school, maybe middle school. And maybe one day I'll release some sort of comic or something. I'm not really sure. But basically how the story goes is she's very oblivious to how our human world would work. So things like music would maybe be new to her or unique, or something that she might find more interesting than a regular person would. And I'm just painting the hand here. I used to hate painting hands, and the more that I do them and the more that I put myself into uncomfortable positions with painting hands, the more that I start to actually enjoy drawing them. I think what probably helped me the most with my hand drawing troubles was really focusing on the anatomy behind the hand. So usually when I'm thinking up a drawing of a hand or sketching up a drawing, I will draw little circles for the knuckles, and I'll sketch in lines for where the tendons meet up with the knuckles and stuff like that, so that I know where the light would bounce off of those indentations and bumps that are on the hand, depending on where the muscles and ligaments and stuff like that are. So I definitely suggest looking at some real life photo references. And the best advice I can give you is to just draw your own hand, because it is the best reference that you will ever have, and it's right there for you. And try and draw it in many different positions with your muscles and tendons flexing in different ways to see how they move around depending on how your hand is shaped. That will help a lot. But you can see here as I'm doing the face, I really started to find my groove with this picture, and I was not really nervous about it anymore, and kind of actually getting into a flow state again. But I just continue to sketch the hands in here, and I wanted to have one of the sleeves a little bit down the arm, and then have another one more perfectly placed up against her wrist, just so it looks like there's some more movement and motion and dynamics in the picture, if that makes sense. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, when I actually started painting her face, I merged the sketch layer and the underneath shading layer all into one, and then I just started painting on top of it. I usually don't bother keeping layers on things unless I'm really worried about keeping the background separate. That's kind of the only time I really keep the layers separate. I work with layers here and there for sure. I try not to, but I do it a lot in these instances where I'm not really sure what I'm doing and I'm just using a really rough sketch. I'll do what I did here and put a shading layer underneath. But even if I do that, like I said, I'll merge the sketch layer and the shading layer and everything all into one, and then I'll just start painting right over top all on that one layer, because I just find it easier on my tablet. It saves processing power. And I don't know, I just like forcing myself into that situation where I am not, well, first of all, I don't like having a million different layers, because then I can never remember what's on what layer, and then I always end up messing it up anyway. So putting it all on one is way less complicated for me. But also, I'm forcing myself into a situation where I just have to make do with what I have, and if I mess it up, then I just paint over it. I don't worry about erasing the part of the layer and redrawing it and stuff like that. I feel like it, when I used to do that kind of stuff, I used to limit myself to certain ways of drawing, and I feel like this kind of just lets it be more free-flowing, like real traditional painting is, if that makes any sort of sense. I'm sorry if that was a complicated explanation, but that's kind of why I do that. So here I'm just drawing her legs. I'd say probably the legs were the only part of the drawing that I wasn't super happy about, but they're not too bad. I had a little bit of trouble with the feet, as I always do, because for some reason I never really quite know how to shape shoes. I know how to shape feet, bare feet, but shoes are weird for me for some reason. But I think these came out all right. A little bit sketchy, but I kind of wanted to keep the picture sketchy like I always do, because I like that more rough look to things. But just sketching in some lines and final details here, just to finish it up. And then I am, for the last bit, completing the horns and the details and the ridges on those. And just erasing the little bits and spots here and there that I missed, and adding in some extra shine. But I am really happy with the way this one ended up coming out, despite all the challenges at first. It ended up looking really cute, and I added in some music notes there just to show that she's jamming out. But I really enjoyed doing this painting, so I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. And I hope you'll come back for more of my videos. Please give this video a like if you liked what you saw, and subscribe to my channel if you want more. And you can also follow me on Twitch and Instagram and Facebook, as well as TikTok. Have a good one, guys.